The follow-up mistake that could be costing you sales in your direct selling or network marketing business. Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back for this week's episode. I am Penny Inches, your direct selling success coach. If this is your first podcast, hello and welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you have subscribed to my YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Of course, these episodes are also available on Spotify and also on Facebook. All right, my lovelies, I want to start today's episode with a question. And this is actually it's one of these ongoing things that I work with my Beehive membership program women clients all of the time. And I thought I'd put it out to all of you today. And that question is, how good are you at following up? Okay. Now, I want you to be honest with yourself. If not, you don't look. You can comment away if you'd like to, but at least be honest with yourself. Do you love it? Do you feel confident doing it, or does the thought of following up with someone maybe make you feel a little bit uncomfortable? I know what the answer is for a lot of women, right? And this can actually sort of really play into your confidence. But look, maybe you think, oh God, these are some of the things I've heard over the years, right? She'll think I'm being pushy. I don't want to bother her. I don't want to come across as a spammy pammy. I already messaged her once. If she wanted it, she would let me know. I don't want to chase people. Right? Any of these things, as that popped up in your mind over time, maybe they don't respond, and or what do we call it? Ghosting. Maybe you feel like you've been ghosted, right? And you think, well, I guess she's not interested, and you move on. But today I actually want to challenge that mindset. I want to challenge that thought process, because there is a huge difference between following up and being pushy. All right. Absolutely don't want you to be pushy. Absolutely not. That's just yucky, right? I don't want anyone sending out cold DMs and, being a spammy pammy, right? Or what do you see a lot of the American coaches reference it? Those hey girl messages, right? We are not doing those at all, right? I do think that a lot of women in direct selling and network marketing have confused the two, like between following up and being pushy, right? And that confusion could actually be costing you sales. And what the message I really want you to take away from today's episode is, you didn't necessarily lose the sale. Maybe you may have just stopped the conversation too soon. That's a good one, isn't it? I liked that one. When I came up with that, I was like, I like that, right? And if you're someone that finds following up uncomfortable, and look, honestly, I've worked with so many women over the years who find following up uncomfortable, I really want you to listen to this episode all the way through, because I'm going to hopefully help you look at follow-up completely differently. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I know someone else that needs to listen to this podcast, look, if you're on Facebook, you can tag them in the comments. If you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify, you can share the link to this episode with that friend, or maybe it's a number of your direct selling and network marketing buddies. So let's get into it. So first, let's talk about, why do so many women feel uncomfortable following up? And I do think there are a few reasons for this. First is that we don't want to feel like we're bothering people. And I say we, because this is part of my business as well. Back, I spent 16 years in the direct selling industry, building a multi-million-dollar direct selling business. And, and I had to do all of these things too, right? I had to do the follow-up. That's part of how I built such a successful business. And of course, now that I've started my own business as an independent business coach for women in direct selling and network marketing, teaching you what are the right Facebook strategies to use, I have to do follow-up as well, right? Have you ever expressed expressed an interest in my Beehive membership program? And have we discussed it? Have you had a free roadmap call with me? Have we had a chat in Messenger about it, right? I also need to do these things to help me reach more of you. And it comes from a point of help. And that is actually one of the things that I want to talk to, I'm going to be talking with you about is if people don't know what you have on offer or how you can help them, how can they take that next step of purchasing from you, booking an event with you or a one-on-one consultation, or even joining your business, right? If they don't know, if you don't reach out, if you don't do follow-up, right, how can you help them to know how you and your products and your opportunities can help them? Make sense? Let me know if that makes sense, if that's a little bit of a light bulb moment, right? But I think that, why so many women feel uncomfortable is, that we don't want to feel like we're bothering people, right? And this is sort of the first thing. And I think one of the top things that I see the most of is that we don't want to feel like we're bothering people, right? And especially if you're a naturally kind and caring person, right? You might think, she's probably busy. I don't want to annoy her. She'll think I'm only contacting her because I want her money. And so you don't follow up, right? Classic, classic, classic. Happens all the time. I hear about this all the time, right? Second reason, we're scared of rejection, right? Because if you send that follow-up message and they say no, and we all get no's, right? We all get no's. No's are natural. Not everybody's going to say yes to everything we have on offer, right? To every message, etc. Like even our friends, we might say, hey, do you want to go to the wine bar on Friday night? And they might go, no. Look, it happens, right? Scared of rejection. So maybe you actually don't even ask your friends about going to the wine bar. But let's get back on to sort of more business and growing your direct selling or network marketing business. Now, we've all heard, you hear that no, right? And if you don't follow up, you might tell yourself, maybe she was going to buy, or maybe she'll come back. Maybe she'll message me next week, right? And somehow that feels safer. And then the third reason, I think a lot of women have been taught that following up means chasing, okay? And nobody wants to feel like they're chasing people around Facebook asking, are you going to buy? Are you going to buy? Are you going to buy? Of course, that's uncomfortable, right? But that is not what good follow-up is. Okay, so I want to work on getting you to change the way you think about it, right? So what if following up wasn't about how can I get this person to buy? What if it was about how can I continue the conversation, right? That's very different, right? Because think about what happens in normal life, right? And this is something, a version of this story I'm going to say is something that I talk to my Beehive program clients about a lot, actually. So in normal life, right, you might be talking to a friend, you're having a conversation. She says something like, oh, I really want to tell you about this thing that's happening next week. And you say, oh, that sounds interesting. And then she gets distracted, you get distracted, life happens, a week goes by. Would you think she was being pushy if she messaged you and said, hey, we were talking about that thing last week. Did you still want to know more about it? Right? Probably not. You'd probably think, oh yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that, because that's what happens, right? People are busy. We are all busy, right? People forget, they get distracted, they have kids, they go to work, they have appointments, they open your message while they're standing in the supermarket, think I'll reply to that later, and then they completely forget. If you have been guilty of this, I know I've been guilty of this. If you have been guilty of this, let me know down below in the comments. I always love hearing from you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't interested, right? It just means they're human. We are all human. We all forget to do things. We all forget to respond to things at times, right? Now, let's talk about Facebook, because obviously this is especially important when you're using Facebook to grow your direct selling or network marketing business, right? As I'm sure all of you are in one way or another, right? Someone might comment on your post. They might react to something. They might reply to your story. They might ask a question. They might send you a message even, right? They might say, that looks interesting, or how much is that? Or I've been thinking about trying something like that, right? Those are all little signs of interest, okay? But interest doesn't always immediately turn into a sale, and that's okay, right? It's not going to turn into a sale every single time, okay? The mistake is assuming they haven't bought now, therefore they're not interested, okay? Sometimes the person simply needs more conversation, right? Maybe they have another question, maybe they're unsure which product is right for them, maybe they need to think about it, maybe they're waiting until payday, right? Maybe something happened in their life, maybe they saw your message and forgot to respond. Or maybe they actually want to buy, but they're waiting for you to continue the conversation. And if you disappear because you're worried about being pushy, you've potentially ended a conversation that could have become a customer. Is that a light bulb moment for you? Let me know down below if that is a light bulb moment for you, right? Here's the big mistake I see with this, right? Someone shows interest. You respond, you have a little conversation, you answer their question, and then silence. You wait, and eventually you think, well, I guess she doesn't really want it, right? But here's the thing, one conversation doesn't necessarily equal one sale. Okay, sometimes it takes several conversations, and that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. You're actually building a relationship throughout these conversations, right? So think about your own buying behavior, and I always like to sort of reference back when we have these sort of preconceived notions about what others might do or might react, how they might react to something or whatever. What I love to always suggest is you stop and you think about yourself. How would you react to something? How would you say something, etc., right? So think about your own buying behavior, right? How many times have you seen something online and thought, oh, that's interesting, but you didn't buy it immediately? Maybe you went away and thought about it. Maybe you researched it. Maybe you looked for testimonials or feedback. I know, like, if I go online, especially if I'm like looking at clothes online, I will go and have a look. Have other purchasers provided feedback about about that item of clothing? How does it fit? What's the fabric like? All those sorts of things, right? Maybe you just waited for some reason. Maybe you forgot about it, okay? Then someone reminded you. Maybe something popped up on Facebook again, right? Or you saw an ad out and about and it made you think of it again, right? And suddenly you think, oh, yes, I actually still wanted that, right? Guess what? Your customers, your potential customers, they are no different, all right? And that is really, really important to remember. So, what is the difference between following up and being pushy? This is really important, okay? I want you to take note of this. Pushy sounds like, are you buying it? Did you decide? Why haven't you ordered yet? This is your last chance. You don't want to miss out, right? Over and over and over again, right? If that's all you're sending out, that becomes pushy, right? That's not relationship building. That's pressure, okay? But good follow-up sounds and feels completely different. Good follow-up is about being interested. It's about being helpful. It's about remembering what someone told you. It's about continuing the conversation, right? It's about making it easy for someone to ask another question so they feel comfortable to ask you another question. And it's about being available when they're ready, right? And most importantly, it's not about forcing someone to buy something they don't want. That makes for an unhappy customer and they won't come back, right? You don't need to convince everyone. You don't need to chase everyone, and you don't need to turn every conversation into a sale. You simply need to stop assuming that silence automatically means no. Because it often doesn't, right? It could be no for now. It could be no till later. It could be I'm not quite sure yet, right? let me give you an example, right? Imagine someone messages you after seeing something you posted on Facebook, and we're all doing a little happy dance. We're like, yay, I posted something on Facebook and someone has messaged you after, right? And so, for example, they say, hey, I've been thinking about trying that. You have a conversation, you answer their questions. They say, okay, I'll have a think about it. Now what happens? This is where I think a lot of women disappear from the conversation, right? They think, okay, she said she'll think about it. And then nothing. A week later, nothing. 2 weeks later, nothing. And eventually you decide she's not interested. But what if she actually is? What if she actually is interested? What if she just needed a little more time? What if she got busy? What if she forgot, right? We're all human, right? What if she is waiting for the right moment and for whatever reason, right? What if she wasn't sure how to come back to the conversation with you, right? This is why follow-up matters, because you're not mind reading. You don't actually know what someone is thinking unless you continue the conversation, right? And this actually happens all the time for me with women who are curious about my Beehive group membership program, right? Happens all the time. And this is where your mindset matters. I want you to stop thinking, I'm chasing her, and start thinking, I'm following up, following through, right? There is a difference. You started a conversation, someone expressed interest, you said you'd help them. Following up means you're doing what you said you'd do. That's being professional. Think about any other business, right? If you contacted a business and asked about a service, would you be surprised if they followed up with you? Probably not. In fact, you'd probably think they were really good at customer service, right? Because good customer service is helping people out. It is following up, is making sure people get what is the right thing for them, right? But sometimes I think, you get stuck thinking that you're annoying people, right? Why do why when you see others doing great customer service and you think that's good, why do you then, when why do you think that you're being annoying when you're doing exactly the same thing, right? I can't spit my words out apparently, but I am just trying, sort of trying to think, how's the best way to describe that to you, right? You appreciate when you get that customer service from someone else, but why don't you see that providing that same type of customer service is valuable to the people you're connected with, right? You've got to flip your mind with that, right? I think somewhere along the way, women so often sort of have decided that selling is uncomfortable, but selling is sharing solutions. Selling is sharing what could help somebody else, right? So, because selling isn't the problem, okay? Pressure is the problem, or manipulation, or a lack of integrity, right? If you're not going about things the right way. But helping someone to make a decision about something that they have already shown interest in that you believe could be of benefit to them, or, help them out, solve an issue, whatever that might be, right? That's not something you need to apologize for, okay? Does that make sense? Let me know if there's been a bit of a light bulb moment for you, right? Now, I also want to talk about something else, the good old just checking in message, right? How many times have you sent that message? Have you sent that message or something like it? Hey, lovely, just checking in. And then nothing. And you're sitting there thinking, why didn't she answer? Have you done this? I'd love to know. Here's the thing. I know I've received messages myself from others to that effect, right? Here's the thing. Sometimes just checking in doesn't give someone much to respond to, right? It can feel really vague, right? I mean, I personally think it is really vague, right? One of the reasons I'm mentioning it to you, because I think it's really vague, right? They don't know what you're actually checking in about, okay? And it can actually create more work for them. It can end up feeling like in the true hard basket, because now they have to figure out what they should say, right? Have you been in this position where you received a message like that, just checking in, and you're like, oh, what's she asking me? That's why your follow-up should have a purpose, right? Not just, hey, not just checking in, not just, did you see my message? Instead, think about the conversation you were already having, right? What were they interested in? What question did they ask? What did they say they were considering, right? Was it about, were they thinking about booking in an event with you? Were they considering, what the business opportunity might look for them, right? What information were they waiting for, right? Were you supposed to be providing some extra information to help them make a decision, right? That's where your follow-up should come from that place of helping, right? And understanding what was it that they expressed interest in, right? And I'm deliberately not giving you a list of scripts today, right? And there's a reason for that, right? Because I don't want you memorizing a magic sentence, right? Because there really isn't a magic sentence, right? Follow up should be personal, right? Follow up should be conversations, right? I want you to understand this principle, right? That follow up should be based on the conversation or conversations you've already had. Okay, that's why I don't believe there is a magic sentence. There is not a magic script for this, because to not sound like a spammy pammy, it's got to be a genuine follow-up. It's got to be a genuine conversation about what they need help with, what they are considering, how you can help them, right? And it is why I love this sort of relationship-based selling, right? I was trying to think of a way to phrase it, right? Relationship-based selling, right? Build relationships. It's what direct selling and network marketing has always been based on. It's what it needs to continue to be based on, even in the social media space, right? Because good follow-up isn't just about getting the sale, right? It's about getting to know the person. Maybe they tell you, I've got really sensitive skin, or I've never used anything like this before, or I'm not sure if this is going to work for me, or I'm not sure if this is going to suit me, or I'm buying this as a gift, or, I'm trying to simplify my routine, or I need something that's easy, right? Now you have information, right? And that information allows you to actually help them, right? You're not just throwing a product at them, right? Because remember, if someone ends up buying something that they don't like, that doesn't work for them, they're not a happy customer. They're not going to tell their friends and family about you, and they're certainly not going to be coming back to purchase again, right? You want to make sure that you are helping them to get something that is actually right for them, right? And when you have these conversations, you're listening, you're asking questions, you're learning, you're recommending what you think will suit them, you're helping, right? And that is good sales, right? That is good customer service. Good sales is service. The sales come when you help your customers, potential customers, to see that what you are offering them is something that is good for them, right? Something that could help them, something that will work for them, etc., etc. Something that will make a good gift. Even if someone's buying a gift, that's still you coming from a point of help, because for many people it's quite overwhelming trying to work out, what to buy mum for Christmas, or what to buy their father-in-law for their birthday, right? And if you can help them work that out, then it takes a lot of their stress away, right? Can you see how the sale comes? Because you've helped them sort out a problem that they had. In that case, it's a problem of, what do I buy this person as a gift, right? And I really want you to remember that, because when you believe that selling is helping, follow-up actually becomes way, way easier, right? Oh, I need a sip of water, my lovelies. Now here's, excuse me. Now here's another thing I want to share with you. And that is, and I think it's really important, is you don't have to get the sale every time, right? And because if you think that every follow-up must end with, yay, she bought, right? You're going to put an enormous amount of pressure on yourself. And it can also lead to like huge disappointment, right? No's, sometimes the answer will be no. That is absolutely normal. Sometimes it will be not yet, okay? totally normal. But if you put that expectation on yourself that every conversation you have is going to turn into, a purchase, they're booking an event with you, signing up as a VIP customer, deciding to join your business, whatever it is, right? If you put that pressure on yourself that every single conversation will lead to this, you actually lead, you lead to disappointment for yourself, right? And it's a lot of pressure on yourself. And I don't want you doing that, right? You know what, sometimes, someone might say to you, look, I've decided not to, right? And that's okay too. Maybe they say, you know what, actually, thanks for all the info, but it's not for me, right? And that's okay. All right. Because your job isn't to make everyone buy. Your job is to have good conversations with people who are potentially interested in what you offer. Okay. Some will buy, some won't. Some will buy later. Some will become customers. Some will become friends. Some will become hosts. They like the idea of hosting an event with you, right? Some might eventually become team members. You don't know where every conversation is going to lead, right? But if you don't try, the answer is always no. Always one of my favorite sayings, right? If you don't try, the answer will always be no. Okay. And you don't know if it's going to be no, right? You got to try. So how do we sort of relate this back into, say, your Facebook content too? Because my lovelies, especially if you've been in my world for a while, this is my specialty, teaching you what are the right Facebook strategies to help you grow your direct selling and network marketing business. How do you attract people on Facebook? How do you, get more sales from what you're doing on Facebook, right? So, talking about Facebook content, this is where your content and your follow-up should actually work together, right? So your Facebook posts are hopefully creating awareness, right? Your stories might be creating some connection. Your reels might be attracting new people. Hopefully they are. If you're doing them right, they will be. Your conversations might be uncovering interest, right? And your follow-up helps move those relationships forward, right? So don't think of Facebook as I posted something and nobody bought. Totally unrealistic expectation, right? Think of it as part of a bigger customer journey. Someone sees your content, they become curious, they engage, they start watching you, eventually they comment, they message you, you have a conversation, they ask questions, you follow up, they become a customer, right? This is a journey, okay? Maybe they become a repeat customer. Maybe they refer someone. Maybe they decide to book an event with you. Maybe they eventually become, a team member, a business partner, right? That's how a business grows. Not from one magical Facebook post, right? There is no magic. There is understanding what strategies work and what doesn't work, what content works to get engagement and visibility, and doing that on a consistent basis, right? But from doing that, showing up consistently with the right kind of content, all of these little interactions that you take and continue to take, these actually nurture those people, right? These actions nurture the people in your world, your followers, those inside of your customer Facebook group. This is all of what you're doing on Facebook is all about, creating visibility, building know, like, and trust, right? If you've been in my world for a while now, you've probably heard me talk a lot about building know, like, and trust. It's really, really important, right? It's when people know, like, and trust you that they will buy from you, recommend you to their family and friends. They will book events with you. They will, sign up as VIP customers, maybe join your team as well, right? So what should you do differently? Well, I'm not going to give you my entire follow-up system in a podcast episode. Ain't going to happen. My Beehive program members get that. We do lots of training around doing follow-up, building relationships, etc., right? Because there is a lot more to effective follow-up than sending just a few messages, right? But what I do want you to do from this episode today is I want you to start thinking differently about follow-up, right? First, I want you to stop assuming that silence means no. Okay. If someone has shown genuine interest, don't automatically write them off because they haven't responded yet. Right? I love using that word yet, right? Second, stop making follow-up about chasing the sale. Make it about continuing the conversation. Third, pay attention to what people have actually told you, right? Good follow-up is personal. It relates to the conversation you've already had. Fourth, give people space. Following up does not mean bombarding someone. You can be persistent without being pushy. And finally, number 5, have a follow-up process. Don't rely on your memory, right? Because if you're anything like most women running a direct selling or network marketing business or any sort of small business, really, you have a lot going on. You've got customers, family, work, Facebook orders. Maybe you've got a team. You've got life, right? Your life, right? So if someone expresses interest today, you do need a way of remembering to continue that conversation, because a lead you forgot about is a potential customer that you may never hear from again. I want to share a little story with you. One of the things I've seen over and over again during my years in the direct selling industry, and then the last 5 years of coaching women across, dozens of different direct selling and network marketing companies, is women telling me, and I honestly, I've heard this over and over again, Penny, nobody is buying, Facebook doesn't work, right? And then we actually look at what is happening, and sometimes people are interested. They are commenting, they're messaging, they're asking questions, they're watching your stories, they're responding to posts, they're saying, can you tell more? But the conversation stops, right? And the woman thinks, well, I tried. And that's where I want to challenge you, right? Because you haven't necessarily tried. Have you really tried? You may have started, right? There is a difference. Starting the conversation is one part, continuing the conversation is another. And that second part is often where the sale happens. I've actually got a beautiful example of a Beehive program member that really embraced this. Or actually, I can think of 2 ladies off the top of my head right now who really embraced the follow-up, right? Lou is with Salesy. Lou has tripled her sales and ranked up with her company. Another one is Cindy, who is with Amare, right? And again, she actually coming into my program, she talked to me about how much she hated follow-up to the extent she didn't do it, right? And I shared with her, various trainings that I've got, like really in-depth kind of trainings. And that's the difference inside of my Beehive membership program, is they are really in-depth, step-by-step trainings. That's what's different to, when you're listening to my podcast or coming along to my free masterclasses. I'm absolutely giving you value add. I'm absolutely giving you things that will help you in your business if you take action on what you're hearing from me. But the step-by-step, that's what goes on inside of my Beehive program. But Cindy, I showed her how to do it. Gave her the trainings, had discussions, because of course you get the support inside the program as well. You can ask me anything, and you'll always get a full answer. But she embraced it, and Cindy actually went on to, it's more than double her income. She also was achieved the #1 customer recruiter. I always get the wording wrong. Customer recruiter for Amare across Australia and New Zealand for the recognition year that just finished. And she's just a few months ago achieved her very first overseas company incentive trip to Hawaii, right? And it is because they dove into the trainings, the in-depth trainings that are inside my program, and started taking action on it, right? And I do reference what the achievements of my Beehive program members, because I want you to see what's possible, right? Because often you might be thinking, you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, it's not gonna work. Well, you know what? It does work. Okay, when you do it right, when you learn exactly how to do it and you take action, it does work, right? Absolutely, it does work. So let's come back to my big message today, right? You didn't necessarily lose the sale. You may just have stopped the conversation too soon, right? So I want you to think about the last few people who showed interest in your business, right? Maybe someone who asked about a product, maybe someone who commented on your post, maybe someone who replied to a story, maybe someone who said, I'll think about it. Maybe someone who said, I'll get back to you, right? Is there a conversation sitting there that you could respectfully continue, right? Respectfully continue. Can you jump in and get started again in that conversation? Not pressure, not push, not are you buying yet? Just continue the conversation because you never know where it might lead, right? Remember, if you don't try, the answer is always no. Okay. So your challenge this week, I do, for those of you who've been listening to my podcast for a while, I often like to throw out a challenge for you. This is what I'd love for you to do, right? Go back through your recent Facebook conversations. Think about the people who have shown genuine interest and ask yourself, did I actually follow up or did I just assume they weren't interested? Okay. And of course, if there's someone you could appropriately reconnect with, do it, right? So if you found someone you go, yes, it would feel totally appropriate to reach out to them again, I want you to do it. Don't overthink it. Don't make it weird. I know actually another one of my Beehive clients who often goes, I overthink it. I make it weird, right? It does. You don't need to overthink it, right? It doesn't need to be weird. Don't turn it into a massive sales pitch, right? Just continue the conversation. Start the conversation up again, right? And then I want you to notice how you feel, right? Because I think something interesting might happen for you. You might realize, oh, following up isn't actually as uncomfortable as I thought, right? And again, I've had those conversations with so many of my Beehive program members, right? Once they start doing it, once they start embracing it, it actually becomes okay. It becomes comfortable, right? But sometimes you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Gosh, I haven't pulled that one out for a while, but I love it. And maybe you'll also discover that someone who you thought had disappeared was actually still interested. All right. Now, I want you to remember that your customers are not just numbers. They're not there for you to achieve your sales goals, right? They are people, right? And people don't always make decisions instantly. They get distracted. They need time. They have questions. They change their minds. I've had that happen a few times. They forget, they get busy, and sometimes they simply need someone to continue the conversation. So don't be afraid of follow-up. Don't apologize for it, right? Don't assume that you are being pushy simply because you're checking back in with someone who has already shown interest. Be helpful, be genuine, right? Be respectful, but keep the conversation going, right? Because sometimes the difference between not getting the sale and thank you so much, I'll take it. It isn't your product. It isn't the price. It isn't Facebook. It isn't the algorithm. It's simply that you followed up. And that's what made the difference. So the next time you hear yourself thinking, she hasn't replied, so I guess she's not interested, I want you to pause and ask yourself, did she actually say no? Or did the conversation just stop? Right? Because those are two very different things, right? And if she hasn't said no, maybe there's still a conversation to have. Love that you've hung out with me for this week's episode. If it gave you some light bulb moments, I would love for you to share it with another woman in direct selling or network marketing who might need to hear this as well. And I would love to know, tell me, do you find follow-up easy or do you avoid it because you're worried about being pushy? I always love to hear about what you are experiencing in your business. Now, of course, if you are ready to learn the right strategies to use Facebook to attract more people, create more conversations, and ultimately grow your direct selling or network marketing business, that's exactly what I teach inside of my Beehive membership program. I will teach you how to use Facebook to attract people, get more sales, all of these things, right? So if you want to know about some more about my Beehive program, do DM me, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Just send me the message, send me the word beehive. All right. And I will reach out with some information. I hope you have an amazing week. Make sure you keep showing up consistently in your business. Keep having those conversations, right? Because I want you to remember that a more confident you, and you become more confident when you learn what you should be doing and you take consistent action with it, more confident you is going to lead you to have a more successful and profitable direct selling or network marketing business. I will see you on Facebook. Bye for now. See ya. Bye. I'll find that end button eventually. Maybe. See ya.